Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra and see how this particular phone holds up in 2025. Now, the thing with this particular device is that it really is one of those types of phones that I look at, and I do think for a lot of people, it is a very, very good device. Unfortunately, in some other ways, it may not be a good device depending on the way you look at it. So we'll take a look at this throughout this whole entire video. First things first though, if you want to pick up this phone or some other phones that I would recommend buying this year, links will be down in the description below. You can get them from there and you can help support the channel at the exact same time. Now, starting off with the outside of these particular phones, with the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra, this particular phone is going to be giving you a 6.8-inch dynamic AMOLED display, and it is a very good type of panel. This type of panel looks amazing, and if you are going to go through and basically get a phone, this thing looks very nice. I love being able to go through and pick up these types of panels and these types of phones that are going to be giving you these like very solid types of experiences. Now you have to remember that with the Galaxy S22 Ultra, this phone came out back in 2022. So it's not really like the best looking phone of all time or anything like that, but it is a very good looking phone. 1750 nits of brightness, 120 Hz curved panel, hole punch display. Like, this is a killer panel still, which I think is something that's really interesting and really important to kind of think about here. Now, when it comes down to the rest of it, you're getting like a curved side to this type of phone, which I think is really nice. You're getting a USB Type-C port on the bottom, which is another thing that I really like, and you're getting your S Pen. So this S Pen allows you to go through and basically click this thing out. So you can go through and click out the S Pen from here. You can go through and use it as you normally would. And I do think that's another really nice thing to kind of think about here too, because you can just go through and just kind of mess around with it. And that is a really, really cool thing. On the backside, you're getting your frosted glass back, which looks really nice. I love having this type of glass back. You're getting your quadruple camera setup on the backside as well. You're getting wireless charging on this thing. You're getting reverse wireless charging on this type of phone too, which is something I really do like. And overall, I will definitely say if you are going to go through and pick up a phone, this is one of those types of devices that I really do like, right? I love being able to go through and pick up this phone and be able to, kind of mess around with it. Because on the outside, there's very few things to kind of mess around with it. About, because it holds up so well when it comes down to that particular side. But there are some things maybe that this phone maybe misses out on that some phones have nowadays. Number one, when you look at the Galaxy S25 Ultra or some other phones that Samsung's made, those particular phones are going to be basically giving you a little bit of a better type of display with more brightness. So those panels do get overall brighter, which is something that's really nice to have. On top of that, you're basically also going to be getting a little bit of a different type of design. Like the S22 Ultra is going to be giving you a little bit of a, like the squared off edges and stuff versus the rounded edges that might be a little bit of an older styling that you're getting inside of the Galaxy S22 Ultra, where a lot of manufacturers have kind of moved away from that. And there's not really like flat sides on this thing either, but that's really not even that big of a deal. But I still think this thing looks pretty good when it comes down to it there. Now on top of that, this type of phone, you're also going to be getting a much cheaper price on this type of device than other phones. This phone is also going to be giving you about $340, right? Which I think is really nice. So $340, that's actually not too bad for a phone like this. And I think that is another really nice thing to kind of think about here. Like if you're going to go through and like pick up a device, this phone doesn't really cost that much money. Well, it costs money. It's definitely not super cheap. But when compared to like a $1,300 S25 Ultra, this thing for looking this good can actually be a pretty decent price for you to think to go ahead and buy. So I think that in and of itself is another really nice thing to kind of think about there. Now, on top of that, when it comes down to it, some other very big things to keep in mind. This phone is also going to be giving you basically a really decent camera on the backside. So this phone is going to be giving you a 108 megapixel wide-angle lens, a 10 megapixel telephoto lens, a 10 megapixel periscope telephoto lens, and then a 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera. So within this type of camera, I will definitely tell you, this is a really, really good type of camera when it kind of comes down to it. And I really do think that that in and of itself is a really nice thing, right? It's giving you 8K at 24 frames per second on the backside. You're getting 4K at 60 on the front side, which I think is a really nice thing. And if you are going to be able to use this type of phone, this is a really nice type of camera, right? Like these things in and of itself, it is a very cool thing to kind of think about, right? It's definitely not like the most perfect camera of all time, but it still is pretty good, 8K at 30 frames per second on the backside too. That is a really cool thing to kind of think about here. Now, I do think if you are going to kind of think about within this type of phone, there's probably some other things to think about too, like maybe all the camera features you're going to be getting in here. There might be some Galaxy AI features that Apple threw in here too, but for the most part, the camera, it's kind of like what you see is what you get type of lens. And I do think that's kind of what ends up happening here for the most part. So from that side too, I will say that kind of covers it up there for the most part from the camera side. Now I do think on top of that, another very big thing to keep in mind here is basically the software updates. So this phone started off with Android 12. It did get up to like 4 major versions of Android, but it kind of stopped there, right? It's going to be getting Android 16, but it's not really going to be lasting for like a super long period of time. So it's already kind of done a lot of Samsung phones nowadays. And the reason why some of these newer phones are really good is because all these newer phones are basically going to be able to go through and give you much longer supported phones. That's kind of been the thing that a lot of these newer phones kind of end up giving you. So they do end up giving you these longer supported phones. They give you more improvements there. And I do think that, again, in and of itself, is another really nice thing to kind of think about there from that side. So in my personal opinion, if you're definitely going to be able to pick up this phone, you're going to be getting a pretty good time there. On top of that, when it does come down to the battery size, 5,000 milliamp hours is what you're getting here. And what's crazy is that this phone is still basically going through and still giving you a pretty good experience when it comes down to, how it compares against some of the competition. Because the, Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra still is going to be giving you that, same amount of battery life for the most part too, which that in and of itself is kind of crazy. So kind of think about that when it comes down to it from that side as well. Now, when it comes down to the battery, when it comes down to the performance, the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra is going to be giving you the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 chipset inside with 8 or 12 gigabytes of RAM. So depending on which particular device you go and end up getting, you might be seeing that with something like this, Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra, this type of device may be giving you a little bit of a more interesting type of performance, because this performance on this device was historically not that good. It was just not that great of a performing device when it first came out. And it's still really, it's kind of grown in some ways, but it's also not grown in other ways. It's really one of those phones where I look at and it's probably not the best type of experience for the most part. And that might be one thing you're going to have to keep in mind if you're going to go through and pick up this type of device, is because it just might not be that great of an experience when it kind of comes down to it. So I do think that right there is probably another one of those big things to kind of keep in mind there as well. So it's not to say that this is like a bad performing phone by any means, but this is just not, it wasn't really optimized for its performance at that time. So overall, if I can kind of sum up this whole entire video, I definitely do think that with this type of device, when I look at the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra, this is one of those types of phones that, it's a very interesting phone to kind of, when it kind of comes down to it, right? Like it's a very interesting device. And I do think this is one of those types of phones that I probably wouldn't necessarily recommend buying anymore. It's already kind of done getting software updates, but also the performance is kind of like, it's kind of on, it's like, it wasn't a great performing phone when it came out either. So we're kind of stuck in this situation where it's not really that great and there might be some problems with it, but there might be better options out there. So I think that's kind of one of the big things to kind of think about. There's much better options. I would recommend buying a Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra or even a Samsung Galaxy S23. Like those devices would probably end up being better than this one. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.